These are the aftermath of strikes delivered by American HIMARS rockets. We always hit with sniper-like precision. Yeah, even if you think you've got balls of steel, a 227mm HIMARS rocket will strike them dead on. At first glance, it might seem like this equipment could be repaired or maybe scavenged for parts. But take a closer look. See those 180,000 tiny tungsten carbide fragments? They sliced through metal like it was paper. Every part of this vehicle is riddled with holes. The chassis, engine, fuel tank, transmission, even the truck's leaf springs, all shredded by the M30A1's shrapnel. This isn't just damaged equipment, it's scrap metal. And as for the enemy personnel, HIMARS is generous to its friends, like Santa with a bag of precision presents. But for enemies, surviving a hit from these rockets would require divine intervention. Seriously, it's like being hit by a celestial shotgun blast. Who could walk away from that? I first saw a fireball. Then, in an instant, the entire clearing was littered with bodies. I've never seen anything like it in my life. When this Russian soldier's comrades arrived at the strike zone, it was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that only comes with death. That's the work of another HIMARS projectile, the GLMRS M30. Its cluster warhead carries 404 M101 dual-purpose submunitions, designed to tear through both armor and personnel. What's left after a strike? Dust, twisted metal, and no survivors. If it's not the most effective system on the battlefield, it's definitely among the top. The sheer power is astonishing. But what makes the American HIMARS so untouchable? Why can't the Russians neutralize it? The first standout feature, HIMARS boasts an arsenal of over 10 different types of rockets. That's right, no other MLRS in the world comes close. Which specific munitions are being sent to Ukraine remains classified, hidden even from the Washington Post. But don't worry, we'll lift the curtain a little. You've already seen the destructive beauty of cluster munitions and tungsten-packed warheads, but the first HIMARS strikes in Ukraine during the summer of 2022 pointed to a different payload altogether. Nearly all Russian targets hit in the first weeks of HIMARS deployment were 25 to 50 miles behind enemy lines. Many Russian ammo depots and troops were annihilated. In just a few days, around 20 major depots were obliterated. Most went up in flames, with their entire stockpile of shells and rockets detonating in spectacular fashion. These strikes were courtesy of the GMLRS with a high explosive warhead, tailor-made for such missions. But how did the Russians let this happen? It boils down to logistics. Russia relies almost exclusively on railways to supply ammunition to the front. The munitions are then stored in depots conveniently located near railway stations. Here's the catch. These depots have fixed and easily identifiable coordinates, and HIMARS rockets, guided by a 24-channel GPS receiver using ultra-secure communication links, don't miss fixed targets. Intel on depot locations is straightforward. Reconnaissance can track the trucks loading up munitions to supply frontline units, and then all you need to do is input the target's coordinates into the computer, press a few buttons, and launch the missile. Now imagine this. Loading these Russian depots takes hours, because, get this, Russian soldiers load ammo by hand. While they're sweating it out, satellites from every nation with eyes in orbit have all the time in the world to capture the scene. There's no way to hide this slow-motion disaster. And so, the depots go sky high. Sure, credit also goes to American satellites for pinpointing the targets, but HIMARS was the ace in Ukraine's hand during its first counteroffensive in eastern Ukraine. With the depots destroyed, Russians can't blanket our infantry and artillery with fire anymore. HIMARS fits perfectly into the maneuver warfare doctrine embraced by Ukraine's military. These systems can strike anytime, anywhere. We can execute missions on any terrain, in the field or on the road. It makes no difference. But here's the real kicker. The actual circular error probable for GMLRS turned out to be 2 to 3 feet, far better than the 23 feet guaranteed by Lockheed Martin. In other words, HIMARS rockets are even more precise than expected. That's a game-changing advantage. And hey, if you think that's impressive, hit that like button. This bold plan was born in Kyiv to liberate Kherson in southern Ukraine. The operation became the crowning debut of American HIMARS, and now you'll understand why it would have been impossible without these systems. Kherson was the only city on the right bank of the Dnipro River that the Russian army occupied in 2022. The Russians had dug in, building strong defensive positions and fortifications. Attacking these with infantry and tanks was near impossible. Why? The open terrain surrounding Kherson stretched for miles, offering no cover. Advancing across it was practically a suicide mission. To make matters worse, the Russian grouping in the area consisted of over 20,000 troops. For Ukraine to counter this force, they would have needed 3 to 5 times as many soldiers. Reserves they simply didn't have. But there was a critical weakness. All supplies for the Russian forces in Kherson had to cross a few key bridges. And this is where HIMARS stepped in, taking those bridges under relentless fire control. Hitting a bridge with an MLRS from 40 to 50 miles away is like shooting a thread with a crossbow. But thanks to the unexpected precision of GMLRS rounds, it was possible. The computer shows us when we're in position to hit the target. The commander gives the order, and we launch. However, it wasn't just the munitions doing the magic. Got a job, we're rolling out. HIMARS crews near Kherson worked non-stop for 37 hours straight. Ukrainian officer Koval told the Wall Street Journal about their grueling but crucial efforts. Putin's generals faced an impossible challenge, destroying the HIMARS launchers. The problem? They were like bees, constantly on the move. The mobility of this machine is fantastic. It can go anywhere, and on the road, it reaches very high speeds. That's why we were able to change locations so quickly. By mid-October 2022, movement across Kherson's bridges was almost completely halted. Ukraine used GMLRS M31 rockets with high-explosive warheads to achieve this. While these warheads couldn't completely destroy massive bridges, 200 pounds of explosives isn't enough to demolish such structures. The solution was simple. Instead of trying to obliterate the bridges, Ukrainians targeted the roadways, making craters faster than Russian engineers could patch them up. GMLRS rockets punched hole after hole in the pavement, day after day. And guess what? It worked. To avoid a complete disaster, the Russians were forced to retreat to the left bank of the Dnipro. Had they failed to do so, the war might have taken a dramatic turn, as most of the 20,000 Russian soldiers would have either been destroyed or captured. Putin lost face withdrawing his troops from Kherson, but in doing so, he saved his army. Meanwhile, Kyiv celebrated a victory that likely wouldn't have been possible without HIMARS. Ukrainians themselves acknowledge this. We used to fight with outdated Soviet-era weapons. Now we finally have modern, powerful systems that can lead us to victory. Working with HIMARS is an honor for every member of our battery. Such precise and advanced equipment brings us closer to victory. By now, every Ukrainian knows the name of this American rocket artillery system. But you're probably wondering, why didn't the Russians shoot down the GMLRS rockets? Here's the thing, the Russians tried to intercept them from day one of the HIMARS mission in Ukraine. Footage from the Kherson operation shows Russian air defense systems launching interceptors, but all attempts to take down GMLRS rockets failed. If a missile is launched, there's a 99 out of 100 chance it will hit the target. That's because HIMARS is no ordinary MLRS. GMLRS rockets first climb to an altitude of up to 65,500 feet, then descend on their target at a nearly 90-degree angle, reaching speeds of up to 2,700 feet per second. Given the relatively short range of GMLRS, air defense operators simply don't have enough time to react. All they can do is watch it on their radar as it comes crashing down. For example, operators of the Russian Pantsir S-1 system only have a few seconds to respond and fire, but even then, the system can engage only a limited number of targets at once, 4 within a 45-degree range and 2 within 90 degrees. And let's not forget, a HIMARS container holds 6 GMLRS rockets. The coordinates for all 6 rockets can be set at once. They can target multiple objectives, or all 6 can focus on a single target. On radar screens, 2 or more rockets appear as a streak instead of a point. Operators never know whether they're facing 2 GMLRS rockets or all 6. But what if 2 HIMARS units launched simultaneously? a tactic frequently employed by Ukrainians. For the Russians to reliably shoot down HIMARS rockets, they would need an incredibly dense air defense network. Achieving this is nearly impossible because such concentrated systems would themselves become juicy targets. Even when such duels do happen, they resemble a miniature war. Take, for instance, the Ukrainian attack on Kursk, a city shielded by dozens of air defense systems. The Ukrainian forces deployed a buffet of weaponry: Storm Shadow missiles, mauled decoys, HARM anti-radiation missiles, GBU bombs, and HIMARS systems. The strike also involved Su-24 and Su-25 jets, 2 F-16s, 2 MiG-29s, and even FPV drones. The skies were packed. Now imagine the chaos on the radar screens of Russian air defense operators. How exactly this Ukrainian orchestra coordinated its efforts remains a mystery, but the operation managed to hit the largest communications hub in the region. The result? Even Russia's advanced air defense systems couldn't withstand a multi-pronged, diversified attack. To counter HIMARS specifically, the Russians sometimes resort to full-scale GPS signal jamming. But here's the catch: these powerful disruptions also affect their own troops. As a result, such jamming is limited to specific areas and short durations, making it far from a reliable solution for neutralizing HIMARS. This forced Russian forces to relocate their depots and command centers out of GMLRS range. Only then did the US agree to supply Ukraine with another powerful munition from the HIMARS arsenal: ATACMS, Army Tactical Missile System. If you think this should have happened sooner, hit that subscribe button. Here's the kicker: ATACMS takes HIMARS to an entirely new level, transforming it into a tactical missile system with a range of up to 186 miles. This isn't just an upgrade, it's a game changer. Imagine Floyd Mayweather moving up a weight class and still dominating his champion. ATACMS quickly earned a reputation as the ultimate slayer of Russian S-400 and S-300 systems. But what about other rockets in the HIMARS arsenal that have proven themselves in Ukraine? So far, we haven't seen the GMLRS-ER extended range rockets in action. These upgraded versions of the GMLRS can strike targets up to 93 miles away, nearly doubling the original range. We also haven't witnessed the new PRSM, Precision Strike Missile, which boasts an impressive range of 310 miles. These are expected to gradually replace M142 ATACMS tactical ballistic missiles. Fingers crossed for their debut. Clearly, the full potential of the HIMARS system in Ukraine has yet to be unleashed. This is why the Russians are desperate to destroy the launchers themselves to take them out of the game for good. But that's easier said than done. First, Ukrainian crews are exceptionally well trained. Our partners took our training very seriously. Second, HIMARS systems primarily operate at night, swiftly changing positions after firing. Reloading the system takes just 5 to 10 minutes. With our speed, the chances of catching us are next to zero. Third, HIMARS is well protected. The launcher module and fire control system are mounted on a sturdy truck chassis, with the cabin and undercarriage reinforced with armored steel plates. This makes it capable of withstanding blasts from several pounds of explosives. So far, not a single HIMARS has been destroyed. Well, except for a few wooden ones. Wait, what? Wooden HIMARS? Yes. Ukrainians have been deploying decoy models in forests to confuse the enemy. It wouldn't be surprising if Putin is being briefed on their destruction. In reality, around 40 HIMARS systems have been delivered to Ukraine by the US since the war began. The exact number in active service or under repair is unknown. However, we've seen footage of a HIMARS damaged by a mine and sent back to the US for repairs. Notice how the wheel is blown off, but the cabin remains intact, meaning all 3 crew members, the operator, driver, and commander, survived. Here's another clip showing a Russian Lancet drone strike on a HIMARS after it had completed its mission. As we can see, the drone's 6.5 pounds of explosives weren't enough to destroy the system. This launcher is likely headed to the US for some treatment as well. The first possible destruction of a HIMARS occurred 622 days after they debuted on the battlefield. During that time, Ukrainians managed to destroy 767 Russian MLRS systems. Not a bad score, wouldn't you say? But is there anything in the world more advanced than this American rocket system? The Russian Uragan? The Chinese WS-2D? Or maybe the North Korean KN-25? which boasts a confirmed range of up to 250 miles. Drop your pick in the comments, and we'll create a head-to-head battle video between HIMARS and the weapon you choose.